Suzy Greaves.
Wow, music and
Wow. So, I've been to a few things like this before, and sometimes they're ever so contrived. And really, I wish we had wine here, because it would be more like our true colours. The things that struck me about you when I met you were your absolute conviction and your mission to take coaching and psychology to as many people as possible.
Yeah.
That's what really struck me. And going back to what I said this morning, I know that some of you who perhaps have recently graduated from the programme, some of you who haven't long set up your businesses, have a bit of a dip in your belief about that. And so I really kind of want to hear from Suzy today about how she keeps that conviction going. So where did it all start? I know that you've been a successful coach, a successful author. You're now editor of Psychologies Magazine. What's the story for us? How did you get here?
Well, I suppose for me it was when I, in the 90s, I was the health editor who smoked 20 fags a day and drank so much that I used to stagger in every day. I used to go to the sick bay and sort of used to lie down, and I saw someone recently, she said it was unbelievable. She used to come up and your hair would be standing on end. And they were like, you know, how did you get away with that? But it was the 90s, and it was that era of the ladette. And I was the health editor of New Woman, which was like Loaded, but for women. And we were sort of, I remember doing a headline of "Eat lard, lose weight." It was that kind of magazine.
Sounds very ab-fab, darling, doesn't it?
It was. But I was, to be honest, I was young and I was in a mess. That was the truth of it. And someone said, "Oh, there's this new thing from America called life coaching. Why don't you try it?" I'm like, life coaching? What's that? I'm not doing life coaching. It just sounded so American, and I was going to do it to write a kind of derogatory piece about it. Anyway, there's this wonderful coach called Rachel Pryor, and she had a session with me, and she said, you know, what do you want to create? And I said, well, what do you mean, what do I want to create? And she said, well, give me your vision. And again, this is the first time I'd ever thought of, well, what was a vision? What do you mean? I can create this, I can make this happen? And she's like, yes. I said, you know, I'd like to create, you know, more money, more love, more security in my life. I wanted all of these things. And she said, what would you have to believe to make that happen? And I just didn't get it. I didn't understand what she meant. I said, what do you mean? What would I have to believe? And I realized this huge thing was that I had to believe that I was good enough. And at that moment in my first session of coaching, I realized I didn't think I was good enough at anything. I thought my career as a journalist, I was hanging by a thread. I didn't think that I was clever enough, intelligent enough. I was from the north. I was, you know, an industry full of posh middle-class girls, and I was from a northern working-class background. And I was just there by the skin of my teeth. So for coaching, for me, in that one moment, I realized, you could change the way you think. You could change the way you could be. And then I hired her. So I said, come on, let's work together. And in literally 18 months, my life had really turned around in a really quite spectacular way. So, you know, I gave up drinking and smoking, and although I did have 3 glasses of wine last night. But, it's become a life of balance now versus where I was off on a different trajectory. And that was started. So my backstory is I lost my parents to cancer when I was a teenager. So I came staggering out of that thinking, oh my God, I've got to make a life for myself. I've got to do this. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to do it. So in a way, I always say coaching saved me. Coaching in a place when I was in my darkest despair, where I didn't know where to turn or I didn't know what to do. I could hold on to something that there was hope, there was a hand to hold, and there was a way out of that. And coaching gave me that. And ever since that moment, I have been absolutely passionate.
Yeah.
And I will, there is a way out, no matter how dark it is, no matter how despairing, alone, anything that you feel, that you can find a way back out and through. And for me, it was coaching, and I've had therapists since, but the work that we're doing is so important because it gives people hope and it gives people a way out. And now being editor of Psychologies, I mean, for me, so it's not just about me. I can spread the word. We're an army of people. Maybe I shouldn't use that metaphor. I don't like the idea of us being an army, but we're all of these people that can create light for other people, either in one-to-one interactions or in workshops or by writing, to show people there is a way, there's always hope. And, we're all different, aren't we? We all do different, we do it in different ways, we communicate in different ways. But if I can sort of give a platform through Psychologies for us all to do that, then I will do that. I will promote everybody to the hilt. I really will. So, yeah, so that was a very, very long answer.
Don't apologise, that was a wonderful answer. So I'm guessing, having been coached, and that coaching having had such a profound effect upon you, you then trained as a coach. Is that what followed?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't mean to start a business. I just was like, I just want all of this. I want to know how to do this. I want to know how the skills, and then I started a little practice. You have to practice. And I was working with Coach University.
Yeah.
And it was with Thomas Leonard, who was this big American coach. And he sort of said, you've got to coach 100 clients before you're a proper coach. So I used to score them off, 100 clients. I mean, I'm not quite sure how present I was. But, and that's what I did. And because I always think when you're first starting out, it's that thing around, you're so worried about yourself and am I doing this right, that you can't be fully present with the client. So the more you practice, the better it becomes.
Yeah.
So yes, I became a coach.
So you became a coach and you became a successful coach too. And that was kind of way back when? In the early days. I mean, it was 2000 that I started my practice. So in the early days, there weren't so many coaches. And because I wrote an article about coaching, I wrote an article about this story, about it changing my life and how passionate I was about it. And so Rachel and I got approached by a massive big publisher, had a lift outside and said, we're going to write, and gave us this massive advance to this first coaching book. It was so exciting. I told everybody, wrote the book, and we handed it in. And they rejected it. And not only that, they wanted the advance back, which I spent, which was awful. It was just so awful. And it was because I didn't know how to write a book. I just didn't know how to do it. And Rachel didn't know how to do it. I mean, I could write, but writing is different from knowing how to write a book. So that was a bit of a journey. And honestly, I felt like I'd been punched in the face, because it was all my fears about myself not being academic enough, not being clever enough, all of those things. And it was like a confirmation. And then 2 weeks later, a little publisher came to me, New Holland, and said, have you ever thought about writing a book? and that was out of those kind of ashes. I'd come to the conclusion that I really wanted to do big league. I was doing health coaching at the time, because I'd changed, I'd given up smoking and I was healthy and well. And then this new idea came up about career coaching, and I thought the people who I loved coaching were the people who were making big leaps, who were making transitions in their careers. And it was very measurable what they were doing. So I got really excited about that. And I said, yes, let me write a book about making the big leap. And I got into that, and then that got published. So it was great. So that really helped. So having, I think, in terms of how to create a successful practice, having a coaching book at that point, even though my first efforts were rejected and I was very skint having to find the advance again, it's a calling card. It's a calling card for you to sort of put your philosophy into one book and say, this is what I believe, and it really, really helps in building a practice in a book. It really does. But even before that, so just for the sake of everybody here, because the questions that I get asked all the time are, how do you get more clients? How do you build a successful coaching practice? How do you really convince people to buy this, especially now as there are more and more coaches around? What would be your kind of words of wisdom around those things, Suzy?
Well, I think it's find out what you're strongest at and do that. So for me, I was strongest at writing. So I would write, it was almost the days before blogs then. So I would write articles. And then, the one thing I wish I'd known, which was a really, really simple thing, but was to build a database. At the beginning, I had so much interest at the Evening Standard. I wrote an article for them. The response was huge. And I didn't capture anybody's email addresses. It's just basic stuff like that. So it's okay being passionate about coaching, but I had no idea about how to build a business or what that meant. So probably for the first 4 years, I didn't capture one email address. And I just thought, this is really great, which was so foolish, because then, in terms of the email addresses, then you have a tribe of people to talk to. And then slowly I learned how to sort of start building business. So definitely get some kind of business advice. Those are the basics of this is what you do. And there's lots of that sort of support available now, which is really, really great. But also, if you're good at, some people love networking and chatting. So organize. I think be a group leader, be the center of things. So I know some people are introverts. I'm an extrovert. But for introverts, often if you start your own group, you're the go-to person. People are appreciative that you're creating something and they don't have to do it. And then you become visible without having to stand at the front of the room if you're an introvert. But do things that you can do consistently and easily. Because if you're thinking, oh my God, I've got to go to that networking meeting and I hate it, you're never going to keep it up. So it's got to be something that's really, really sustainable and that you really enjoy and that you really love. Creating groups and tribes, that's what I've always done. Even I'm doing now at Psychologies, constantly doing that, because I believe as a community, and if we can be vulnerable and authentic and real and talk to each other and say, I really don't know how to do that. Oh, so-and-so knows how to do that. That's really great. So I think community, doing what you're strongest at in that community, writing, for me was the big thing. Building a database. Oh my goodness, build that database. So important.
We're only just catching up on that, I'm ashamed to say. It's true. It's shocking, isn't it? But you just don't even realise the value of it until you haven't got it. Sorry, but...
Well, I was going to say, with social media, the most exciting thing is, when I came to Psychology, we had 20,000 on our Facebook. And with 3 years on, we've got 1.2 million now. Wow. So it just shows you, with social media, if you're putting the right messages, and by that I mean authentic, real, wonderful, loving, kind, wise messages, and you're beaming that out there, people want to come to your party. They do want to come. So, and it's never been easier to find your tribe and to attract people to you. So even if we're, late to the party, it's still...
We can play catch up quickly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've talked a lot about writing and writing being a way in for you.
Yes.
And I know there are lots of people here for whom it's also a way in, or for some it's an aspirational way in. And I know that lots of people would love to write for Psychologies Magazine, and I still feel like completely and utterly thrilled and an imposter that I am the person that's doing that. In fact, let me digress for just a moment and tell the story of... Do you mind if I tell the story?
It's funny.
So when Suzy and I met one another for the first time, my book had just been published, and I took the book along, and I was a bit sheepish because I was still feeling like, I don't know if anyone's going to like it. Gave it to Suzy just like this, like, there's my book, you don't have to read it if you don't want to. And we agreed to stay in touch, and we agreed to do lots of other work together. And then we had a number of telephone conversations, we had a number of meetings. Suzy never mentioned the book once. And each time she didn't mention the book, I created a bigger and bigger story. That, oh my goodness, I've just given this book to Suzy Greaves, editor of Psychologies Magazine. She thinks it's so rubbish that she can't say it to me. And now I feel so embarrassed about the whole thing that I can't even say to her, have you read the book yet? This is what we do, isn't it? Even when we know better, this is what we do. And then some months later, Suzy phoned and said, I've just read your book, will you write a column for Psychologies Magazine on the back of it? And what do you think had happened? It was at the bottom of a pile, wasn't it? On your bedside cabinet, and you just hadn't got around to it. So real lesson there in just...
I mean, and it is a real lesson. It is a complete real lesson of... So we get bombarded by stuff constantly coming in. And I mean, I've got it and I see it, and the books that I'm interested, I'll take home and they're there. And sometimes I just simply haven't got the capacity sometimes to do it. And then I picked up this kind of coaching book and I didn't even know it was yours. I'd just taken it home. It was just in my pile. And I started really thinking, oh, this is really good. This is really good. I'm like, and I looked at the front, I'm like, Kim Morgan, where do I know that name? And I've met you twice.
I made such an impression on
No, but I've met you twice. But I'm not very good with names. And then I'm like, oh my God, that's you. And so again, it's that thing of, some people say, oh, I've contacted you. But I get 600, sometimes more emails a day. So and the people I haven't heard, and it's not because, a lot of it's PR and stuff like that. But it's not because we don't want to respond. It's it's just incoming
pressure,
is huge.
yeah.
But it's worth following up. Do you know what I mean? And sometimes we just haven't got to it.
That's kind of where I was leading. I wasn't just going, no, I write for Psychologies and you can't. Where I was leading with that was that I know you are looking for new contributors, and I know that there are some people here who would love to do that. So really, while we have you here, what's the process? What do they need to do?
So there's lots and lots of ways you can write for Psychologies. But we have a new platform called Life Labs, and we're looking constantly for bloggers. So that's not a paid gig, but in terms of what Susan was talking about today about traffic, we can send you traffic and you become one of our... So you apply, you just go to Life Labs, apply, and then, again, there is a little bit of a waiting list, but, that's one way. So that's for any kind of blog. So you're an expert and you're writing things like 7 ways to be more productive, 3 ways to whatever. And it's a great way of... One, that we see your writing, and then we're starting to drive traffic. Mostly I'm reading most of the blogs and seeing what's going on. The other way is to pitch an idea to the magazine, which is actually the complete opposite of what the blogs are. So we're looking in the magazine. I've said I don't want the experts at the room saying, okay, this is how you live your life and this is what to do. What I want are journeys. Are people who had a problem and think, oh my God, what am I going to do? Start there, and then you've found some way, whether it's through coaching, through some psychological way, or you've gone to different experts, or you've tried a different therapy, and the outcome is successful or interesting or something that we can learn from. So in the magazine, I'm looking for more journeys, which are not... So a lot of people say, oh, I've got 7 ways to be more successful. That's not right for the magazine. It's perfect for the blogs, but for the magazine, we want more of a lyrical writing about your emotional journey, about how to get there. The other way that we feature a lot of people in Psychologies is every month we do a dossier, which is a 20-page special, whether it be on mindfulness, decluttering. We're just doing one on healthy body at the moment. And we're always looking for case histories. So we do a big picture of you, we interview you, and we feature you. So there's 3 ways: Life Labs, to the magazine, and case histories as well. There are 3 really easy routes, and we're constantly looking for new ideas. Constantly, I'm often commissioning new writers. I mean, with my team, I'm saying, find us some new writers. We need new voices. We've just run a competition with Hay House to find a new wise voice. And again, the 2 girls that came out of it are just incredible. I mean, wonderful talents that we've discovered. So, please contact us and send us your ideas and your message.
Thank you. I feel like Psychologies is a little magazine that goes out into the world that brings these notions of positive psychology and mindfulness and coaching into people's living rooms and into doctors' surgeries and dentists' waiting rooms, and just going out there and spreading the word.
Yeah.
So what can we learn? What can we as coaches learn from Psychologies? Like, who reads it? What do they want to know? What are they interested in? How can that help us inform our practice?
Well, I think when I took over, I'm very conscientious about my own self-development, and so I'll really concentrate and I'll do all the exercises that it says in the magazine. And when I first took over, there was a lot of that in the magazine. And I think, how I've changed the magazine is that it's a magazine. It's actually not a coaching workbook. It's about entertainment and joy. And before it was a little bit about how to stop feeling depressed. And I want the magazine to be about how to bring more joy into your life. Christian was talking about flourishing in the last session. How can we flourish? At the same time, not being kind of positive thinking, but more about positive psychology, about how you can, how you can come back from adversity, how you can, the tools that you can use to do that. So I think what happens is many of us are very, very passionate about our own thing. I had a picture the other day, and it's like, what do you know about duality and non-duality? And I'm like, yeah, I know about that. Like, well, you should write about that. And I'm like, okay, but we need that wrapped up in a story. Tell me. So people want to tell me rather than show me. So create a story. Create a story that our readers love. So we've got we've got a weird reader. We have a 25-year-old and a 45-year-old. The market that's growing is the 25-year-olds who seem to be staggering out of university and thinking, this is not what I signed up for. So we've got a lot of people who are wanting real, like, how do I navigate this on my terms? Our strapline is your life on your terms. So there's a 25-year-old, and then there's a 45-year-old who is now looking for fulfillment and looking for more. There's obviously going through some, the children are leaving, or they are changing career. And I think it's a really exciting time to be an older woman right now. Never before in the history of time has it been so exciting to be an older woman, because there's so many opportunities there for us. And I am really, really passionate about wisdom and finding that wisdom from all of these people, because there's so much blah out there. I want to put stuff in the magazine, yes, that looks nice and on the surface, but when you read it, you're like, it hits you in the core of your heart. So yes, our readers are 25 to 45. We're seekers. We're people looking for ways. We're not go-to people, what they call go-for-it people, trying to find new ways of living that's more fulfilling and happier. And we're not daft either. Do you know what I mean? We're not daft. Yeah. We're not. It's not that kind of positive thinking, kind of against all odds. It's being really honest about where you are, and coming out of denial and saying, my marriage really isn't working anymore, so can I save it, or what am I going to do about it? It's being really real about your problems and then finding a solution that works for you.
As you were speaking and explaining that so passionately, I picked up our brochure here, and on the back page, what we chose to put on the back page was "Tell me and I forget, teach me and I remember, involve me and I learn." And I think what you're asking for from contributors is that involvement, isn't it? And it's that emotional involvement too in their stories. Yeah.
Yes. So I think it's that thing of sometimes to make yourself vulnerable in a piece or to write, it's really hard, because especially as we're coaches, because aren't we supposed to know what we're doing? But it's more about being able to say, look, this is the real place of where I am, and to be honest and authentic, to use your words as well.
And it takes courage, doesn't it, to put yourself out there as an imperfect human being. And I know part of my anxiety about the book was that we had some reviewers' feedback that it seemed like I didn't know what I was doing, because I shared things that had gone wrong, and I shared my anxieties and doubts about the way that I'd approach my clients. So there are still some people who will see it that way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I think if I come across anybody who is living the perfect life, I know it's fake. I mean, I've coached for a long time now, and I've coached the most magnificent, brilliant, successful women and men, and no one has a perfect life. Everyone has their stuff, and of course, perhaps we don't want to share it, you know. But when you're in a really good tribe, and you can be yourself, and you can really share what your issues are and whatever, and people get it, then it's great, because then going back to our first session, you can really be you.
Yeah.
You can turn up and be you and be accepted for that, and also lead from that place.
Yeah. You just mentioned coaching some really successful people. I also know you've interviewed some amazing people.
Yeah.
Just tell us about one or two of the...
Oprah!
Oprah was your moment, wasn't it? Yeah.
It's like talking to God.
Tell us about Oprah.
It is like talking to God.
It
was just I mean, it was on the phone. It wasn't face to face, but it was the middle of our Christmas party, and we got the call, and it was like, she's going to be here in 2 hours, and you've got to be on the other line. So I said to the girls, right, I'll have to find a place in London that I can go. And I went to the Bluefin building in London, and the only room that they had available was the boardroom. So there I was. I mean, literally, I get goosebumps now. I was sitting in the boardroom, this huge boardroom, and I pressed the button, and the speakerphone came on. And it was, it went through lots of things, and she was talking from Chicago, so lots of officers. So it took about 4 minutes for her to come on the call, and then it was, hello, this is Oprah. And honestly, I felt my knees give way. It was just, she's such a big inspiration to me. I mean, talk about somebody coming from the darkness, all of the things that she suffered, to becoming such a wise woman that she is today, to spread the word. I just loved her. And she would listen to the question, and then she really thought about it. And then she would give you a real deep and wonderful answer. And she was just great. And she also said that single mothers, and I'm a single mother, are the most brilliant people on earth, and what a great job I did. So I just loved it. She was just wonderful. I loved her. She was fantastic. But closely followed by Elizabeth Gilbert, who wrote Eat, Pray, Love. And again, it's so scary meeting your heroes, because you think, oh, what if they're... She was so wise. I'm like that. I didn't even want to speak or ask questions. I just went, just speak, just speak. And she was so real and honest, and the kind of woman I'm talking about. You just want her on your team. She'd tell you straight, but she was kind and inspirational, and she was amazing. Buy Big Magic. Everybody buy that book. It's amazing.
Suzy, thank you. I hope that some of Suzy's enthusiasm and wisdom, experience and conviction has rubbed off on you today. And I hope we pick this up and do something with it.
I will do.
Yeah. Are we in? Yeah.
We're there.
Yeah. We're there. We're not just in, we're there. Suzy,
Great.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. A lovely day.
Thank you.
And can I just say a huge thank you to Kim, because organising a day like this, being a leader like you are, leading from the heart. When I just fell in love with her. I just thought, she's fantastic. Whatever happens. And then when I realised that you could write, hurrah! It was great. It's like, okay, get her in. But what you do is amazing, and you're leading from the front. So thank you for organising such a spectacular day.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Suzy.